Mm.
What is it, do you think, about your game that has people just can't wait to see you on the professional level?
I think it's just the style of basketball that I play. To be honest, I don't get nervous for games because, like, I just know, like, this is fun.
Seconds after lighting up the court once again, Caitlin Clark walked into the post-game press conference expecting the usual questions and smiles. But on this night, a single moment would turn the room ice cold. For the first time in her young career, the face of women's basketball was left speechless. What exactly was said that stunned her into silence? The Indiana Fever had just pulled off a gritty 94-87 win over the Las Vegas Aces at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, with Clark delivering what many are already calling the most complete game of her rookie season. Her stat line was the stuff of headlines: 28 points on 11-4, 18 shooting, 6 threes in just 10 attempts, 12 assists, 5 rebounds, and only 2 turnovers in 38 high-intensity minutes. The win pushed Indiana into playoff territory as the season's end drew near. The press room hummed with camera shutters and frantic note-taking. Caitlin answered each question with that calm, confident edge her fans know so well. When ESPN's Holly Rowe brought up her on-court connection with teammate OIA Boston, a duo that had shredded Vegas in the paint for 18 points, Clark grinned and said, "The trust is real. OIA's patience as I adjusted to the pace of this league has been huge. It felt like we were in sync on every play." Then, from the front row, a familiar face finally stirred. Stephen A. Smith, who had been unusually quiet, leaned forward. The man known for dissecting legends from Jordan to LeBron locked eyes with Clark. She nodded for him to speak. What followed shifted the entire room. Rising slowly, his voice low and measured instead of booming, he began, "Caitlin, I've been doing this job for over 30 years. I've sat across from legends, watched dynasties rise and collapse, seen rookies fall apart and others rise to greatness. But there's a question I've been holding back, one I can't ignore anymore." The room froze. Fingers stopped over keyboards. Camera operators leaned forward. Even a few staffers at the door paused, sensing something big. Stephen A. Smith rubbed his face, but this time there was no performance, only sincerity. "My career's been built on brutal honesty. I never apologize for demanding excellence. But this year, watching you face the storm of expectations and make the leap from college to the pros, I realized I was wrong." His voice wavered. "I owe you an apology." Then he dropped it, the question that shook the room. "How do you keep showing grace and professionalism even when people like me, especially me, have been unfair? I've doubted you, judged you, and sometimes I've been flat out wrong." The air grew heavy. Reporters exchanged glances. Caitlin Clark, the player who never shied from the spotlight, went completely still. This was the same Caitlin who had stared down roaring crowds at Iowa, thrived under Final Four pressure, and brushed off harsh critiques. Now silent, her hands still, her voice caught. Finally, she whispered, "Wow, Stephen, I don't even know what to say." Her teammates Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston stopped in their tracks, realizing they were witnessing something bigger than basketball. Caitlin took a breath, steadying herself. "You asking me that, and owning what you just said, it means more than you know," she said, her voice shaky but sincere. "Yeah, it's been tough. The criticism, the comparisons, the doubts about whether I could make the jump. But it pushed me. I studied more film, worked harder, and proved to myself I belong here." Stephen A. nodded, then slowly reached into his jacket. He pulled out a folded, worn slip of paper. "There's more," he said quietly. He began reading. "3 months ago, on my show, I called you overhyped. Said the buzz around you was manufactured. I questioned your strength, your speed, and your readiness. I dismissed what you'd achieved. But watching you, your numbers, your leadership, the way you've brought new eyes to women's basketball, I was wrong. You're not just a rookie. You're changing the game." The cameras clicked. Caitlin's eyes shimmered as he went on, citing her averages, 19, 5 points and 8, 4 assists, and comparing them to Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird's rookie years. But he made it clear it wasn't just the stats. "You've packed arenas, tripled ratings, sold out jerseys, and shown leadership under pressure. I was wrong, Caitlin. I owe you, the league, and my audience an apology." The press room erupted. Holly Rowe wiped away tears. Sue Bird stood and clapped, sparking a wave of applause. Aaliyah Boston put a hand on Caitlin's shoulder as the moment sank in. Caitlin's voice grew stronger. Stephen, you don't need to apologize to me. The media's job is to challenge us. But it takes real courage to admit when it's time to rethink. That's respect. The criticism made me better, not for the cameras, but for my teammates and for the game. When asked about media coverage of women's basketball, she said, the attention is amazing, but it can't just copy the way men's sports are covered. This league deserves its own lens. Then, just as everyone thought the moment was over, Stephen A. pulled out a smaller note. His voice softened. My daughter Maya plays basketball. She's followed your journey since Iowa. She wrote you this during your rough start and made me promise to give it to you. Caitlin unfolded the letter, her expression shifting into a warm, tearful smile. Would you mind if I read this out loud? She asked. Stephen A. nodded. Her voice carried Maya's words, a mix of admiration, hope, and belief that reminded everyone why sports matter. Laughter and applause filled the room. It was no longer a press conference. It was a moment of connection, respect, and the power of owning your story. So, what do you think about the question that left Caitlin Clark speechless?